Hello, welcome back to my channel. So as you may have noticed, recently I've been uploading more frequently. I've been recording videos more frequently, and that's I would attribute that to this recent fire that I have inside of me. And I just figure with this fire, why not just take advantage of it and make more videos? And the past few weeks have been kind of a little bit heavy for me, but now that I felt much better this week, I thought, why not? So, with such fire comes videos. So, this video I'll be talking about two books that I've just finished recently, and after these books I have not finished any other books. So, let's talk about this first one. This is called The Gigolo by Françoise Sagan. And this is a very, 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 very tiny book. It's only 40 plus pages. It's a collection of 4 really short stories. And, well, the short stories were originally written in French. It was translated to English by Joanna Kilmartin. And the 4 short stories in this collection were actually extracted from a longer collection called Silken Eyes that was published in 1975, if I'm not mistaken. So, so what did I think about this short story collection? This would be the second book by Françoise Sagan that I have read. The first one was actually something I read like a few years ago, and that was called Bonjour, Tristesse. I had high hopes for Bonjour, Tristesse, but I thought that I was going to love that book because it just sounded so dramatic, and the premise just sounded so dramatic. The title was just but I was left disappointed. My sister got me that book for Christmas, I think. Yeah, I think it was Christmas. Or was it my birthday? I don't remember, but it was a gift that my sister got me, and I did not enjoy it. Anyway, I thought, let's just try more stuff by Sagan. And I would say this book ended up being kind of lukewarm for me. I gave it about 3 out of 5 stars. I could definitely see like the kinds of elements that I noticed in Bonjour, Tristesse in the writings of these novels. The 4 short stories generally have something to do with relationships, romantic relationships, not necessarily romantic relationships that are genuinely romantic, but in general just kind of relationships that are kind of like based in sexual attraction. And there are certainly this flair for the dramatic in these stories as well, kind of similar to Bonjour, Tristesse. If you have read Bonjour, Tristesse, and if you remember how that story actually develops towards the end, oh my gosh. The car thing, and then that girl's response to the car, oh my gosh. Get over her, get over yourself. Anyway, out of the 4 stories in this book, I would say 2 of the stories are actually stood out a bit more for me. The first story, called The Gigolo, which is about an older woman's relationship with a gigolo, and how due to their differences in social background, their social status, and also their age and all that, how that just kind of leads to an imbalance in their power dynamics, and how this is kind of like subtly explored in this story. And the other story, which is the second one, called the Unknown Visitor. That one is less of a subtle short story, but more of a plot-driven short story with some kind of an interesting resolution. So those two stories are interesting. Like the first one, the imbalance in the relationship. I like that theme. And then the second story has something to do with infidelity. The third story has something. The third story is a bit of a more reflective kind of a story. It's about a character just going to a place and just have a moment of solitude and all that. So it's like really reflective, but at the same time I just find it kind of forgettable. The fourth one, I would say this one was for me at the time really fell flat. It's called In Extremis, and it's about this man who is like really sick, and he has this feeling that he's gonna die, and then while he's on his bed, not sure if it is his deathbed or just regular bed, because it's not really clear that he's really going to die in this book, but he is talking to his wife, and they sort of have conversations with each other about like how he used to be unfaithful and all that, and they have conversations about this. And something about this last short story just felt like it wasn't really able to reach the kind of gravitas that it is trying to aim for. I feel like this last short story was trying to be profound, and especially when you have something related to like death, for example. It's a really heavy topic. It deserves to be written in a deeper way, I suppose, and I feel like that's the intention, but I just did not get it. I did not get the deepness that deepness. I just do not get the depth. I just do not get the sense of the depth that I think the author was trying to put into this story. So basically it just felt kind of superficial, and it didn't really work. So overall, I thought it was an okay book. It was so, and it was, I would say, for the most part, I kind of enjoyed the fact that I was able to finish this very quickly, and so I just kind of had that temporary rush when I finished a book. Every time I finish a book, I get that rush. Anyway, that's all I have to say about this short story collection. I'm gonna move on to the next book that I finished, and this is Perfection by Vincenzo Latronico. This book was originally written in Italian, translated to English by Sophie Hughes. I got this book from my friend, and I was interested in reading this book, so I asked him if I could borrow this. I did not expect that I would like this book. I was interested in it, but I just did not expect the kind of experience that I ended up having with this book. So in some ways, this book actually surprised me. So let's talk about that. But before that, what is this book about? So this book is about a young couple from Italy named Tom and Anna, and the story takes place sometime in 2014 until 2019. So this book ends in 2019. But yeah, basically Tom and Anna, they are this young millennial couple, and they work in as freelancers. Basically, they work with internet, they work with website design or something like that, graphic design, something to do with offering freelance services to clients. So basically, in terms of their jobs, they have this kind of flexibility regarding like when they can work, where they can work, and how they can choose to work. And they've had enough successes in their jobs that they were able to accumulate savings that allows them to actually relocate physically to Berlin in Germany. And so the bulk of this novel is about their living experience as this young millennial professional in Berlin, how their life is like, the kind of experience that they have, the kind of people that they hang out with in Berlin, and but the way that this book also describes the experience, their living experience as this millennial professional in Berlin, is also rich with commentary. So basically, on one hand, their life in Berlin is described as this kind of like Instagram perfect, where everything seems to be curated in a certain way, or using the favorite word that a lot of people like to use these days, in a certain aesthetic. And this novel just kind of takes a jab at the implication of them leading this kind of life. Like, on one hand, on a surface level, the life of this young couple, the life of Tom and Anna, seem very interesting, very exciting. You know, they're living at a foreign country. They're hanging out with other expats. They live in this really interestingly designed apartment, and they are able to earn high salary, right? And then at the same time, they also engage with plenty of interesting cultural activities in Berlin, and so it kind of forms this very curated image of who they are as person. But this book also kind of dissects what happens beneath the surface, like what's really going on with this couple. And we would eventually learn that they also have some kind of dissatisfaction with this kind of life, right? And in order to cure this dissatisfaction, Tom and Anna decides to engage in social activism. But somehow, even that one doesn't seem to work well for them. And I don't want to talk more about, why that is, but this book also comments on some of the possible reasons why Tom and Anna would eventually, despite all of these perfections that they have in their life, like at least from the outside, why they end up encountering these kinds of dissatisfactions. It has something to do with their approach, with their attitudes, and so yeah, why did I like this book? I'm just gonna, you know, say first that interestingly, this book contains a lot of things that I would usually consider as kind of elements that I do not like in a novel. Number one, I think that Tom and Anna are kind of written as caricature characters. And you got two individuals, but somehow they're always mentioned together as if they're like one single entity. And because of that, I also think that on the surface level, Tom and Anna feels like two-dimensional characters, but more on that later. So yeah, that's one thing. Another thing is that this book to me feels like an Instagram post critiquing the millennial living, for example, or an Instagram post that provides some kind of social commentary, except it's in novel form. So in a way, the implication that I'm trying to arrive to is that there is something twee about this work. It feels like the kind of work that when you view it, right, it's just like that Instagram post with all its pastel colors. When you view it, you realize that, yes, these are the issues that are currently happening. Let's say, for example, millennial living, the discontent that millennials could possibly have. And you feel like you've become more aware of all of those things, and you feel like you've changed simply because you consume that Instagram post, or in this case, this book. And then you feel this need to pat yourself at the back. So yeah, that's another thing. And then number three, I also feel like Tom and Anna were written as if they are characters meant to drive home a point. Characters who are meant to be just an element in an anecdote in order to convey a message, and not necessarily to develop a story or develop a character and go deep and all of that stuff. So those are the things that I typically would not enjoy, but somehow in this book those three elements work. They work really well, and in this case those are the three elements that I think makes this book feel very appealing to me. This book is more, to me, the way that I read it, this book feels like a work that is trying to capture a kind of zeitgeist about what is going on with the younger people, more specifically the kind of a very specific group of younger people nowadays, the late millennials, or maybe even the early Gen Zs, for example. I think you can extend this to them as well. The kind of aesthetics, the kind of aspiration, the kind of perfection that they're trying to strive for in terms of their lifestyle, in terms of careers, in terms of life in general, right? So this novel just kind of captures that feelings of what younger people would these days, right, would view as the kind of ideal life. And it just so happened that because nowadays social media is such a big thing, and engagement on social media is such a big thing. And one of the things that drive engagement would of course be curated content. And the way that curated contents are shown to us, they're often shown in this like really specific kind of aesthetics or sets of aesthetics. And basically I would say that is the kind of scene that this novel is trying to capture and convey to readers. And this novel also used Tom and Anna as kind of like a stand-in, a representation of the individuals who live in this particular bubble that pays a lot of attention to this kinds of aspirations, this kind of aesthetics in their life, and consider it as a target, right? But this novel also would eventually examine if this target is actually something that is worthwhile. Is this target something that is truly fulfilling, or are there more beyond this target? Because the characters themselves would eventually feel some kind of discontentment, and this novel would kind of examines the sources of that discontentment, the dissatisfaction. And yeah, I like this book because it kind of made me engage with how it uses these characters in such a flat way to do something else. Like even the form of this novel, I would say the goal is kind of different as well. Like it's not really trying to tell a story, it's just trying to just tell an anecdote. Like, yeah, anecdote is a story, but anecdote is more like, to me anecdotes are more like a scenario. It's like not really a full-fledged story. And usually I don't like anecdotes, but I think in this case I feel like this anecdote is written in such a way that is kind of self-aware. The narrator sounds kind of judgmental, which is another thing that I usually don't like, but in this case I feel like the narrator sounds judgmental. You can feel like the narrator, as if the narrator is kind of like a character in this book. Like the presence of the narrator is quite strong. The narrator is judgmental. Like occasionally you can hear the narrator just kind of like comment something about the characters. But at the same time, you can also feel kind of compassion from the narrator. Like the narrator doesn't try to really roast the characters, like really roast Tom and Anna, but sometimes would kind of step back and just kind of describe to us like, yeah, maybe they're not so, providing some, justification as to why they would do certain things. So there's a bit of a balance, but because of that variation in like how the narrator approaches the characters, I feel like the narrative feels very present. Like it feels like you're talking to an actual person, or hearing an actual person talking. So that part I kind of appreciate. So yeah, this book was really interesting to me. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars, and yeah, I could totally see why many people enjoy it. Oh, and there's one more thing, because while I was reading this book, I can't help but also think about my own personal existence. Because I am also a millennial. I'm like a late millennial, and I can't help but feel if sometimes I might have I may have certain personal aspirations that resemble what Tom and Anna would consider as the target, right? like nomadic lifestyle seems to be very interesting, and personally I do find it kind of appealing as well, but obviously I'm not really nomadic right now. But it got me thinking about one thing. The main characters are Europeans, and they might as well be white or white passing Europeans, right? So there is something that feels kind of okay, I wouldn't say alienating, but there's something that makes it easy for me to kind of distance myself from these characters, despite the fact that I am also millennial, because I live in a totally different part of the world, like really far away from these guys. So and I think that I'm also kind of the same age as these characters. But at the same time, I have a different background. My background in terms of economic status is different because of my nationality. And partly because of my nationality. Okay, just kind of make that clear. And so I feel like when I was reading this book, there's something that kind of makes me feel like I'm far from these characters. And so when I view these characters, I sort of view them as if I'm watching something that is not related to me. But at the same time, I also think about like my own personal interests, my own personal goal, and sometimes some of those things just kind of align with what they consider as aspirational. And even the fact that I am reading a Fitzcarraldo edition book which I imagine would definitely align with their aesthetics, right? Makes me wonder if my personal interest in books here on YouTube or on Instagram has a bit of that, has a bit of that overlap with them, and if yes, if I do have that kind of inclination, right? If I and these characters have some of these overlapping, do I also share the certain kinds of failings that these characters also have, which, to be honest, is a bit of a scary thought to have, but I feel like it's helpful to just kind of self-reflect a little bit, because this book definitely explores the kind of failings that Tom and Anna has, their attitudes towards their environment, for example, their lack of sensitivity, for example, or their surface level engagement and all that, right? So if these characters are written that way and their sadness are coming from these kinds of things, then if I feel unsatisfied or dissatisfied, like with my own life, is it because of similar reasons? I don't know. Do I include myself among these people? Again, I'm not sure. I'm inclined to believe no, but who knows, right? Who knows? We may have something in common with people that we don't really consider as similar as us, Food for thought, I guess. But anyway, I talked a lot about perfection. I suppose I should be making like a single book review for this book, but then again, I think this should be okay, because it's not like I had a lot of things to talk about this anyway. So those are all of the books that I've finished so far. Just very quickly, currently I'm reading, focusing on 2 books. The first book I'm focusing on is this one. This is called The Yellow Rain by Julio Llamazares. I started this book a few months ago, but then I just set it aside because I thought that this book was kind of depressing, and I felt like it was not really working well with my state of mind at the time, and I thought it was unfair for me to continue a book that I know I would enjoy, but at the same time, if I was not in the right circumstances to enjoy it, I don't think it's fair for the book. This book is about an old man who lives alone in a village in the Spanish Pyrenees, and it's really depressing. Like, he's alone and he's surrounded by ghosts of his past, like not exactly like supernatural ghosts, but more like mental, psychological ghosts and stuff like that. And the whole vibe is just really desolate and bleak and, autumnal. Yeah, kind of enjoying this one so far. It's kind of lovely. Another one that I'm currently reading, I got this one from the National Library. This is Everyone Knows Your Mother is a Witch by Rivka Galchen. And this book is about a woman who lives in 17th century Germany who was accused of being a witch, which is an interesting premise, except for the fact that the characters seem to be talking like they're from, 21st century North America, which, it's really, it's distracting. I do not have the the authority nor the knowledge to describe how an actual person speaks in 17th century Germany, rural Germany. Pretty sure they didn't speak English, but the language of this novel is English. But that aside, I feel like in terms of tone, they probably didn't sound like 21st century North Americans, but I don't know. I'm gonna try reading this book. I hope I can get through, overcome that personal problems I have with the book. I hope it's not a DNF. But anyway, let me know if you have read any of these books, and I think I'm gonna stop this video now. I'll see you again in future videos. So until then, take care. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to my rambling, and I hope you guys are doing wonderful, happy reading, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.